In the vast, unforgiving wilderness of Montana, nestled between thickets of pine and silence so heavy it could crush you, stood a 10 by 12-foot wooden shack. No electricity, no running water, no phone, just a man, a typewriter, and a storm brewing inside his mind. By day, he walked the woods like a ghost. By night, he crouched by candlelight, surrounded by bomb parts and pages of manifesto, fingers black with ink and grease. Each word he typed wasn't just a thought. It was a declaration of war. His target? Modern society. His message? Civilization was a lie, and technology, its weapon. From 1978 to 1995, over the span of nearly 2 decades, 16 bombs would be sent through the U.S. postal system. Airlines, universities, computer stores. No one felt safe. 3 people would die. 23 more would suffer horrific injuries. Shrapnel tearing through flesh, fingers lost, faces burned. The media named him the Unabomber, short for UN University and airline bomber. But behind the fear, behind the devastation, was a name few had ever heard: Ted Kaczynski, a former math prodigy from Harvard, who once lectured on complex geometry, now reduced to a recluse scribbling manifestos about societal collapse. So the question wasn't just who the Unabomber was. It was, how did a brilliant young scholar become one of the most terrifying domestic terrorists in U.S. history? Before Ted Kaczynski was the Unabomber, he was a child genius. He skipped 6th and 11th grade, entered Harvard at just 16. But for all his intellect, he never quite fit in. Awkward, withdrawn, alone in the crowd. What happened next might have changed everything. At Harvard, Ted was recruited, without full consent, into a secretive psychological experiment led by Dr. Henry A. Murray, a former intelligence operative. The study was brutal. Prolonged interrogations, verbal assaults, humiliation designed to shatter identity. Over 200 hours, Ted was deconstructed. His beliefs were mocked, his thoughts dismantled. He later described it as being mentally dissected, stripped layer by layer, until nothing familiar remained. Years later, when details of the experiment emerged, some would call it psychological torture. "They betrayed me," Ted once wrote in his journals. "Science used me like a rat in a maze." After graduating, he earned a PhD in mathematics and became one of the youngest professors at UC Berkeley. But the world he was entering, of academia, machines, conformity, felt hollow. "It was noise," he wrote. "Noise and metal. Nothing human left." In 1969, he abruptly resigned, disappeared. He retreated to a small wooden cabin in the wilderness of Montana. No electricity, no running water, just trees, cold wind, and the sound of his own thoughts. There, the transformation began. He read, wrote, waited. His anger matured into ideology. Technology, he believed, was erasing human freedom. Industrial society was a cancer. To kill the sickness, he later wrote, you must cut out the system. In the silence of the woods, Ted Kaczynski became something else. Not a man in hiding, but a man preparing for war. May 25th, 1978. A small package is found at a university parking lot in Chicago, addressed to a professor. No return label. It explodes in the hands of a security officer. No fatalities, this time. But the fuse had been lit. Over the next 17 years, Ted Kaczynski would mail or plant 16 bombs across the United States. He didn't target at random. His victims were professors, computer store owners, airline executives, symbols of a world he believed was destroying humanity. The bombs were crude, but terrifyingly effective. Crafted by hand from scrap metal and wood, sometimes with wires dyed pink, inscriptions like FC, Freedom Club, etched into them. Sometimes sealed in cigar boxes, disguised as academic papers, even hollowed-out books. One device exploded aboard American Airlines Flight 444, forcing an emergency landing. Others maimed and killed. People like Hugh Scruton, who died after picking up a parcel outside his store. The FBI had never seen anything like it. He moved without trace. No fingerprints, no DNA, no surveillance, just postmarks, fragments, shrapnel. The attacks seemed random, but they weren't. In his cabin, he tracked every target with obsessive precision, wrote manifestos, drew diagrams. This was no madness. This was ideology, weaponized, and it worked. Universities installed bomb scanners. Professors opened their mail with gloves. Airlines changed security protocols. The FBI formed a task force, the Unabomber case. University and airline bomber. Years passed. Leads dried up. The press called him a ghost. But inside that Montana cabin, Ted Kaczynski believed he was making history. In 1995, a new letter arrives, addressed to the New York Times and the Washington Post, typed, demanding publication of a 35,000-word essay titled Industrial Society and Its Future. The threat: if they refuse, the bombings will continue. The FBI is torn. Some fear it's a trap. Others believe this could be the key, the voice of the ghost they've hunted for 17 years. On September 19, 1995, they publish it. And across America, people read, horrified and intrigued. The industrial technological system may survive, or it may break down. If it survives, it may eventually achieve a low level of physical and psychological suffering, but only at the cost of permanently reducing human beings to engineered products. Technology is a more powerful social force than the aspiration for freedom. The system does not and cannot permit significant reforms. Revolution is the only path. The words are cold, mathematical, absolute, but they resonate. Some readers agree, others are disturbed. For the FBI, this is unprecedented. A terrorist with a philosophy. Linguists analyze the syntax. Psychologists dissect the rhetoric. But no identity emerges. Until a man named David Kaczynski reads the essay. Something clicks. The phrasing, the logic, the disdain for modern life. It matches someone he knows better than anyone else. His brother, Ted, a man he hasn't seen in years. A man who once taught math at Berkeley. A man who vanished into the woods, chasing a world without machines. The FBI now has a lead. David, heartbroken but resolute, gives them old letters Ted had written, full of the same cadence, same ideology. They run forensic linguistics. The match is near perfect. The shack in Montana was barely bigger than a prison cell. Inside, the FBI found typewriters, batteries, copper wire, and formula-stained pages. No electricity, no plumbing, no mirrors. Only one man, one ideology, one war against the modern world. In 1996, Theodore John Kaczynski was arrested. Beard unkempt, eyes distant. The FBI had hunted him for 18 years, and in the end, it wasn't technology that caught him, but his own words. The trial never happened. Kaczynski pleaded guilty in 1998 to avoid the death penalty. He was sentenced to life in prison without parole. In 2023, he died behind bars from suicide, aged 81. No final words, just silence, but the shadow he cast lingers. His manifesto still circulates, read in online forums, cited in tech debates, echoed in whispers of anti-establishment groups. Some hail him a prophet, others a madman. But no one reads his words without feeling something unsettling stir beneath the skin. The cabin is silent now. No bombs, no manifestos, no voice screaming into the void. Just dust, pine needles, and the lingering trace of a man who tried to stop the world from spinning. Ted Kaczynski died in a prison cell in 2023, alone. But his ideas? Some of them still echo in academic halls, underground forums, and the anxious corners of a hyper-connected world. Was he a monster who cloaked his violence in philosophy? Or a prophet who saw too much, too clearly, too soon? Maybe it's not about whether he was right or wrong. Maybe the real question is, what kind of world creates a man like Ted Kaczynski and then tries to forget him?